Hello friends, welcome to Azure. In this video we'll talk about Azure Components. So this video is very important for a beginner. Why? Because until unless you get to know about the different components or at least about the key components of Azure, you won't be able to fully understand the power of Azure and you will never be able to get expertise in Azure. I will try my best to explain the Azure key components in the easiest way and I'll give you demo. So this is not going to be a theoretical session. I will show you and I will explain by going to the Azure portal what is the actual meaning of a particular component. Alright, so that being said, let's begin the video. Alright, so the very first key component of Azure is compute. Now, what comes under compute that we'll cover in this video. Okay, next critical component is storage. If you guys are aware of storage, then you must be knowing that there are different type of storage which Azure provides, such as blob storage, file storage, table storage. All right. And if you have no idea, then nothing to worry. I'll cover each one here. Okay. Now the next component is database. So here we'll talk about Azure for MySQL database or Cosmos DB. Next component is CDN, which stands for Content Delivery Network, and which is very important for a developer to understand. All right. Next component, security plus identity. So here we'll talk about different services which Azure provides for authentication and authorization. Next we have integration services. Then we have monitoring services. The next one is networking, and then we'll talk about mobile services. This is something which is interesting for the mobile developers. Next we have workflows. So again, this will be a very important concept for Azure developer. And then in the end, we'll talk about web services. If you go to the Azure portal, right, and then you will see that there are so many components and we cannot talk about each one here in the one video, but these are the very critical component which you must know. All right. So let's begin by looking at the compute first. So as the name suggests, it offers services such as application development, hosting, deployment, etc. Right. Now here we'll see what are the common services which comes under compute. For example, the very first is VM, which stands for virtual machine. Right. So virtual machine is like infrastructure as a service. Okay, and it allows you to create a computer, a virtual system that you can use. You can choose your own hardware components like CPU core, memory, and you can also go and opt your operating system, the one which you want. Then you can make use of that VM, or you can convert that VM into a server, a web server or application server, depending on your requirement. You can also control the access of the particular VM. All right, so you can see here I have already logged into the Azure portal, and here you can see the categories. So if I go and click on compute, you will see there are so many compute services. All right, so we are not going to talk about each one, but we'll see which are very important. For example, we have virtual machine on top. Okay, all right, so let me just go and create one for you guys, because if you will see, you will learn more. So add virtual machine. I'll make it very quick. So let me just go and create new. Basically, let me call it as OK Azure RZ is my resource group. Virtual machine, I'll call it as OK Azure VM. Location, if you really want to know what are these parameters, I have another video in which I've explained everything in detail. But here, like, we are not going to put much time, so I'll make it very quick. Here I need to have port 3389 so that I can RDP the machine. Rest of other things I'll keep as is. Go and click on create. Here is my VM. And if I have to connect, like I can RDP just by using this particular IP address, MSTSC, to RDP the machine. Okay, Azure, I have to put my password. Okay. All right, so our VM is ready. Now you can convert this virtual machine into a server and then you can deploy all your application and your code. All right. Now let's talk about the another service which falls under compute. Next one is VM virtual machine scale set. What it does, this particular service offers to configure and create thousands of VMs with similar configuration within minutes. So basically, it lets you run your application or your service on hundreds of identical VMs. Let's go to the Azure portal and see how can we create a virtual machine scale set. All right, I'm here. Let me just go and search for virtual machine scale set. All right, it's here. Let me just click on this one. Now let's go and create one. So resource group, I'll select one which is there already. VM skill set, I'll put a name. Okay, as your VM skill set 0. I'll keep rest as is. So this is very important. Now it is very important to understand this particular tab called scaling. So here I have to put the initial count. It says the number of virtual machines in scale set from 0 to 1000. Let me just go and put 100. Now it says scaling policy. So you have to define a rule. So let me just go and click on custom. I want minimum and scale. I can make it as 50 as well. And it says CPU threshold 57%. I'll keep this thing as it is, but yeah. So this is very important thing to understand when you want to increase the number of your VMs or when you want to scale down. So this particular tab is very, very important. And when you fill all these details, just click here. It will give you the explanation. Here you will see the details. All right. But for now, just for simplicity, I'll simply go and click on next because I don't want to take much of the time. All right. So this is how you can go and create a VM skill set and then you can try it out yourself. Next service is Azure App Service. So you can use this app service to deploy a web application on Azure. Okay. So let's go to the Azure portal again. So to create a web app, simply go and search for web app. Here it is. I just need to fill some details here. Okay, Azure. Application name, I'll call it as OK Azure web app. Okay. Code, let's keep it as it is. .NET Core 3.1. Location, I'll go and select East US. Now we need to have a plan. So it will create a new plan for me, or let me just create one. Okay, Azure plan. App service plan. Size, monitoring, rest, I'll keep as is. Next, next. I can access my web app by using this particular URL. All right. Now let's go back. Let me close everything from here. Now let's talk about the next service, which is Azure Function. This service offers a solution to run a small functionality by deploying a piece of code. This is used for code reusability. Deploy once and use multiple times. So the good part of Azure Functions is that you don't have to worry about the infrastructure. And Azure Functions falls under serverless computing. So we'll talk about Azure Functions and serverless computing in detail in the next video. Here, let's go and see how do we create Azure Functions. So I'm here. Let me just go and look for functions. Here it is, function app. Let me just go and create one. I'll make it very quick. So I have to select the resource group. Function app, I'll call it as OK Azure function app. All right, let me just go and select .NET Core 3.1 East US. Click on next. So for simplicity, so this is the very important to pay your attention. Yeah, here you need to create a storage account. Let me just go and select one, and I'll call it as OK Azure ST, which stands for storage account ST. Okay. Now, so this particular thing which says plan, it is very important to understand. For Azure Functions, we need to always go and select consumption, which stands for serverless. So here you don't have to worry about the infrastructure. Okay, don't worry, we'll talk about Azure Functions later in the coming videos. But for now, I'll just simply go and click next. Application insights, I don't want. Tags, review. Simply click on create. Alright, so our function app is ready. You go here under functions. You can set up the triggers for your function app. Let me just go and click on add. And then here you will see different triggers, like a function app can be used by using different triggers like HTTP trigger, timer trigger, queue storage trigger, service bus trigger, blob storage. So there are different triggers available to invoke a function app. So this is very useful concept and very important in Azure. We'll talk about each one in the coming videos, but not here. All right. So let me just close everything from here. Let's go back. Let's see what do we have next. Now the next computing service is Azure Batch Service. Again, it is very important. Azure Batch Service comes into picture when you have vast amount of data and you want to process the records. For example, if you talk about Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, or the scientific data, when you have like huge amount of the data and you want to process the data in a sequential order. In that scenario, just go and make use of Azure Batch Service. So let's go and see how do we create one. I'm here at the portal and I'll type here batch service. Let me go and select resource group. It says account name, so I'll call it as OK Azure. Hopefully, yeah, it's a valid one. You can see the right tick mark. Location is US. Click on next. Now it says what do you want to enable? So it says entity as default. Next. Basically, Azure Batch Service is a critical component and you cannot complete in just 2 minutes. I will make another video and then we'll see in detail in like a working version of Azure Batch Service. But for now, I will simply go and click on create one. So here you can see our batch account is ready. Now let's go back and let's see what do we have more. So the next service is Azure Container Service. Basically, this particular service lets you create a container hosting solutions which is optimized for Azure. So let's go and see how it works. Simply type container service. Okay, so it says container service is deprecated. Let's go and see container instances. If I click on add, so it will create a new instance. Now you see here ACI allows you to quickly and easily run containers on Azure without managing servers. Okay, so let me just go and select the resource group. Container name, I'll call it as OK Azure is fine. Let me just call it as ACI. Location is now here it is very important. So you want to get a container image. So there are different sources. One is you can go and make use of the quick start images. If you want, you can go and select one from the Azure Container Registry, or if you want, you can get it from the Docker Hub. All right, but for now I'll just go and select the quick start images. I'll keep as is. the default one, which is provided by the Azure. I'll keep as it is. Next. So basically here we are creating a container image. Now if I click on create, deployment is in progress. So here you can see our container instance is ready. So again, I'm not going to talk about much here in this video. Let's go back. Now the next service which falls under compute is Azure Container Registry. This service store and manage container images. So here, this particular service lets you create container image and you can store those images in Azure Container Registry. All right, so let's see how it works. I'm here at the Azure portal and I'll type container registry. Okay, here, let me create one. I have to pick the resource group. Okay, RZ. Container registry name. Okay, Azure, and I'll call it as ACR, Azure Container Registry. Okay, it is valid one. Location SKU, I'll keep it standard. For other things, I'll simply click on next. But these things are very important to understand. Let me just go and create one. All right, so our container registry is ready to use. All right, let's go back. All right, so the last one for today is Azure Service Fabric. It is a distributed systems platform that makes it easy to package, deploy, and manage scalable and reliable microservices and containers. So let's go and create one. So I'll simply type here Fabric. Okay, it is here Service Fabric clusters. Let me just go and create one. So I just want you guys to feel like that yes, you have seen these things in picture. So it will stay in your memory for a longer period of time. Cluster name, I'll call it as OK Azure cluster. It's a valid name. East US username. Let me just go and select OK Azure. I have to give the password 01. All right. Now this is very important. It says initial VM skill set capacity. So that these many VMs will be there in your skill set. I'll keep 10. Node. So you have to be very specific while choosing the count and while choosing the node types because you will be charged based on your selection. Now here I have to go and select a certificate, which I cannot do that. It will take some time to create a certificate because first of all I need to have a key vault and then I need to have a certificate. So it will be a time taking process. We'll cover that in the next video. All right, but I hope you got an idea like how to go and create a service fabric cluster in Azure. All right, let me close everything. All right, so here we are done with the Azure compute services or what services that makes Azure compute a key component. All right, so we'll talk about the remaining components in the next video. Thank you for watching and please do subscribe my channel.